Public affairs. Berkowitz is my name, and politics is our game. And we'll be doing lots of politics and public policy this evening because we have as our guest State Senator Randy Hultgren, who is running, well, he'd like to be the next congressman from the 14th Congressional District. He knows something about politics because he was on the board, DuPage County Board for 4 years, State House for 8 years. This is his third year in the State Senate. And as I say, he wants to be the next congressman from the 14th Congressional District. First, he's got to win the Republican primary in February, and if he does, then he's likely to take on the current incumbent, Congressman Bill Foster, who's a Democrat. Randy, of course, is a Republican. But look, folks, if you're not in the 14th Congressional District, don't turn that dial, because we're going to be talking about lots of issues of importance to you, whether it's foreign policy, whether it's Iraq, whether if it's Afghanistan. Do you think there should be another economic stimulus? Should the Bush tax cuts be kept? Have there been too many bailouts? Can we improve education with school choice, mandatory school prayer, overturn Roe v. Wade, abortion, guns, gays, guns, all that stuff? So you get the message. You turn that dial and we're coming out to get you, seriously. And so whether you're watching in Chicago or in Aurora or Rockford or around the state of Illinois or in the 34 Chicago metro suburbs that we air in, you're going to see a pretty good show. No, you're going to see a great show. And we're going to start right off. I'll tell you a little bit more about Randy Hultgren as we get into the show in the 14th Congressional District. But Senator Hultgren, now that you wanted to be a congressman, we got to shift from state policies to foreign policy. So let's start there.
Great.
Should there be more troops in Afghanistan?
I think there should be.
How many?
Well, I agree with General McChrystal that I trust them. I think that's worked for us in Iraq, is having our generals be able to provide information that's going to be helpful for us. They've been successful there, and so I would agree with the 40,000. I think we need to give them what they need to be able to complete the work there in Afghanistan.
You know, when we've got now, what is it, about 140,000 in Iraq right now?
I think that's right.
And would you say, should that only happen, that go from, would you say about 60,000 now in Afghanistan?
Right.
40,000 more would be 100,000.
Right.
Should that 40,000 go up only if the Iraq troops go down to 100,000?
I don't think we have to make it dependent on one or the other. Again, I really do trust the generals there. I think that's what's worked best for us. When we start dictating to them of what they can do, you know, certainly it's within constraint. It's understanding what's available and what other needs that we have. But as best we can, I think where we've been most successful is saying to our generals, we need advice from you. What's working? What isn't working? How can we complete the job that we need to complete there?
Well, if we go back to Vietnam, or what we did in Vietnam,
right.
We went from obviously a few troops to, what was it, over 500,000?
I think that's right.
Didn't the generals at some point advise our presidents at that time, in particular LBJ, when he went from, what was it? Well, I guess, did he go to 500,000 troops by the time he left in '68, or was it later? I'm not even sure.
I don't know. I trust you on that.
But my point is, weren't they advising that? And would you, looking back, do you think that was good advice? We were doing the right thing in Vietnam, and then somehow we just didn't close the deal?
I think what we need to look at is right now. I don't know. Certainly, I hope we've learned a lot of mistakes, things that we could have done better. There was I think some miscommunication, some clearly political agendas that, from what I read, that were going on there. And you know, that still happens, but I also know that we've come through so much in the last years, and we have to look at a recent success. One is Iraq and the direction that we've had from our generals there, and I think we need to rely on that with the work in Afghanistan as well. And as Congressman, I would support that.
And going back to the fall of 2002, way back, we're taping the show, we should say, on October 4th, 2009. But if you try to put yourself in the position of being in Congress in the fall of 2002, and remember President Bush came to the Congress and asked for authorization to take military action. Pretty well-known vote, some refer to as War Powers Resolution vote.
Right.
How would you have voted then? Would you have voted to support the President's request, that is to give him, to authorize him to take military action in Iraq?
Yeah, again, I wasn't there, and so that's hypotheticals of looking at that. But from what I do know, and from the question, I would support the president and the work that was done there. Obviously, we had many struggles in the years that went through that, but now as we look back, it does appear that it's been successful, and I'm so glad we didn't respond to the push by Nancy Pelosi and others to pull out of Iraq. I think the best hope that we have now is because of the commitment that we've made and really the follow-through with our generals. Now looking forward to elections coming up, hopefully in the next few months, but really seems like some good things that are happening there. And honestly, Iraq is important to all of us, but it's not the same front page news that it was, because it does appear that things are working pretty well.
But looking back, would you say it was you do think it was worthwhile, because we lost more than, what, 4,000 lives?
And I don't take
that
lightly.
Would you say the cost was $1 trillion, $1.5 trillion in Iraq, something like that?
I think that's probably right.
But looking back, if somebody presented you and say, this is what we can achieve, what we have in Iraq in 2009, it's going to cost you more than 4,000 American lives. It's going to cost you $1.5 trillion or more. You would have said, okay, where do I sign?
Certainly not any excitement about that. It's a very sobering thing, but what we have to remember too is we've had years, 7, 8 years with no further attacks on America, and clearly that has to be our number one priority, is make sure we protect America and protect American lives. I hate the idea of sending our troops into harm's way, but sometimes it's necessary. And so I think we need to be open to that. We need to make sure we've got absolutely the best generals on the ground, and make sure we're supporting our troops with all that they need to be able to accomplish what we're asking them to accomplish. And I think they've done that there. Again, certainly nothing I relished, but I think in the situation that we had in 2002, coming right off of 9/11 of 2001, and realizing now that we've had no further terrorist attacks since that time, and now there is some stability that's coming back into a region that has been so unstable for decades, maybe more, centuries.
And you think a part of the reason why we've had no additional major terrorist attacks, certainly none in the United States, since September 11, 2001, part of that reason is because we took the position we did in Iraq?
I think that has to be part of the consideration, yes.
Okay. Well, let's go back over to domestic policy. We'll go back and forth during the show.
Great.
Healthcare. Which some people say, there are about 45, 47 million uninsured Americans.
Right.
Others say when you modify how you define that, people who maybe could get health insurance are entitled, choose not to, et cetera. People who are illegal immigrants, so forth. They cut the number down to about 8 million uninsured Americans in the United States now. Which number do you think is right, and does it matter as we consider what to do about health? I guess we'd say health insurance reform more than health care reform.
That's great. I think it does matter. It doesn't change our responsibility, whether it's 8 million or 45 million. We still have responsibility for people who want coverage, want care, and can't get access to it. So we absolutely, whether it's again 8 million or 45 million, I think it changes what we do, of what our reaction is to that. So I think it is important to dig into those numbers and find out as best we can what are the real numbers, what are the people that really want health care coverage, who are people that are choosing to use their money in other ways that could have access to it, and how do we identify those people that really need it, really want it, and can't get it, and how do we address that issue rather than throw everything out when we hear 80+% of people are really pretty happy with the health care that they've got. So my concern again is, it seems like Congress is good at two things. One is doing nothing, and one is overreacting. And so that's my fear, is with health care, it just seems a perfect example where are we overreacting? Are we going too far and really risking the high quality health care that we have, access, ability to meet with doctors?
So going back to the initial question, which do you think it is, 8 million uninsured or 48 million?
I think it's somewhere in between those two. So
somewhere like 24?
Yeah, I think it's probably right in the middle is honestly where I think it is. Still too big of a number. Absolutely, we need to do something.
Is there a Republican solution? Is there a Republican proposal as a counter proposal to what the President and the Democratic majority Congress are proposing?
I think beyond just a Republican solution, I think there's a bipartisan solution, at least to start the process. And again,
what is that? Give me the 2 or 3 main points.
Well, I think there's several. It's and it comes back to a decision of, is our best, there's 2 ways that we get people covered with health insurance. Either we mandate everybody have health care insurance, or we make it affordable enough where it becomes compelling for people to want to purchase health care insurance. Those are really the options that we've got. I think anytime we start mandating things and we have 3 options or 4 options, reality is you've got a bureaucrat coming between me and my doctor, or my family and my doctor.
But is there a free rider problem? Are there some people who are short-sighted And you might say in a free society, we want them to live with those consequences if they're short-sighted. But if we don't, if when they get terribly sick, if they get a disease that requires immediate attention, they show up at the emergency room and they're generally not turned away, and people who buy insurance pay for that. So in a sense, they get a free ride. Would you agree that's a problem?
Oh, it's absolutely a problem.
And
yeah, when we have emergency room
it's
healthcare, it's not appropriate.
So it's not completely a matter of making it more affordable, because a lot of these individuals apparently would choose, even if you did make it more affordable, to take a free ride.
Well, and
I mean, do you think I'm right in that score?
To an extent, although I don't know if it's enough to throw out, to react to that, so we affect the 80% of people who are satisfied and really affect the quality of health care.
You think that might be a small group and it's not really imposing a large cost on society?
I don't know if it is. But one thing I do know is the proposals that are out there right now with the majority party is pushing maybe 3 or 4 plans, and really none of them have this catastrophic health care insurance, which again could be relatively affordable to have that kind of coverage. We talked about some things that we could do, and I think our bipartisan initiatives. One was I worked directly on down in Springfield. I was on the Judiciary Committee of the House and worked on medical malpractice reform, of realizing that we were losing good doctors here in the state of Illinois. I was the Republican spokesperson on the Judiciary Committee, and we were able to pass through a Democratic House, a Democratic Senate, and a Democratic governor have signed true medical malpractice reform. It's one step.
That puts a cap on liability.
Exactly.
Now, that's being challenged in the courts. It's before the Illinois Supreme Court right now.
Yep.
And wouldn't you say if you're a betting person, it's likely to be held unconstitutional?
I don't know. I'm hoping it won't be.
Because
I think
you do have a law degree.
I do.
Chicago, Kent, right?
I did, yeah.
And you did practice for a while.
I did practice for a while.
You're a recovering lawyer now, right? Would that be fair?
Yeah.
You're not practicing now?
It's a great education, and I'm so thankful to have it in my service on the Judiciary Committee, but I work with a great company in Chicago, a company called Performance Trust, where we help people with their investments. So I focus more on investments
So you're
for people.
a citizen politician now?
Yes.
The theory is you're supposed to be a citizen for the large bulk of the year, 8 months, and then 3 or 4 months spending a lot of time in Springfield.
Theoretically, although a couple of these years, Jeff, we've been down there about 11 months.
It's the other way around.
Oh, it's been tough.
Constant. But the point is you do have a law degree.
I do.
You did practice for a while.
I did.
And if you were a betting man, would you say, you may not like it, but if you were a betting man, that it's likely the Illinois Supreme Court will hold these caps unconstitutional?
Again, I just don't know. I haven't been sitting in on things. I've been reading as much as I can. I think with the makeup of the court, I really do think it could go either way. I think your likelihood, is maybe more so just with the makeup of the court that they might throw that out. I hope it doesn't happen, because I think it's one step in the right direction. It's not the answer, and that's the thing I would want to follow up with on that is tort reform is one piece. It certainly affects the cost of health care when doctors have to always think about not providing the best.
That's something you'd like to see on a national level, national tort reform.
Yes.
Lower the cost of health care, make it more attractive, more economically feasible for people to buy insurance, then you don't have to mandate.
Yeah, and that's one point.
That's what are the other main points?
Well, I think another one is transparency of cost of health care. I think people are going crazy when they go and get some care at the hospital, and they see how much they're paying for an aspirin or a mug for water, and it just depends on the whole payment scale. Depends on who's going to be paying for it.
Well, that's
and there's
they
a great
don't
frustration
care
there.
that much because somebody, a third party is paying. It's curious why the third party isn't pushing harder, which would be insurance companies.
But I think it does affect the cost of insurance when it just depends on who's actually going to be ultimately paying the bill. So we need some more.
$100 for an aspirin will affect the cost of insurance.
Yes, it does. Absolutely. Okay. So we need just more transparency there. One of the things we've been talking about is how do we make this more affordable? And we do see that different states have more affordable health insurance than other states. I don't know. There's a possibility of talking about opening that up so we can shop across state borders.
Right now in Illinois, you can't. If you want to sell into Illinois, you're an insurance carrier. Unless you've got specific approval, which often is hard, you don't get to sell into Illinois.
Right.
Which means consumers have less choices.
That's exactly right.
Less competition, and they pay higher prices.
Right.
So you would push for that nationally.
I think that's another option. It's again not the solution. Transparency. If we can do tort reform, I think talking about having more access to affordable insurance. I think having that option where if someone really does want to say, you know what, I take good care of myself. I'm just going to pay cash for my health care. But to have that catastrophic option in there, which really isn't part of any of the plans right now, the majority party, I think we need that, where there is some ability to qualify for having catastrophic coverage, so if there is truly something that would have a huge price tag to it that society would have to pick up, I think we need to encourage people to pick that up and maybe even have tax benefits for people to have some health insurance coverage.
And are you saying that catastrophic coverage would be provided by the government?
No, I don't think so.
Subsidized by the government?
No.
Well, when you say encourage people to pick that up, what do you mean?
Encourage, first of all, if it's, there's different talk of maybe having some sort of credit that people could have, tax credit for some level of insurance coverage. So I think that's something I'm looking at. Yeah. Yeah.
And you might do that.
I'd be open to that. And we've seen that in other things where you give a tax credit where it becomes an incentive for somebody to do something. One last thing that I do want to talk about that makes this unique other than any other argument is healthcare. There's personal choices. And you referred to this a little bit earlier, that it really is unlike anything else. It's unlike economy debates and job debates. You know, those do have personal responsibility to it, but my health care especially, we see that if people take care of themselves, it has a direct impact on the cost of care for them. And if they're doing preventative measures rather than going to the emergency room for care, that's a good thing. So we need a system in place that encourages people to take care of themselves, to have incentives.
Which is part of what, as I understand the Obama plan is to push insurance companies that generally don't cover preventative care. And things that could avoid getting diseases.
Right.
As far as I know, physicals and things like that aren't usually covered. Your point is they should be covered. You may differ with the Obama administration or the Democratic majority as to how you bring that about. Is that the point?
And even
but you are in agreement in that you would like to see.
I would like people to take personal responsibility for their own health care.
How do you do that? How do you,
well, I think it's education. I think it's people realizing the quality of life that they enjoy if they are healthy, if they're eating well, if they're exercising.
You wouldn't mandate it. You wouldn't have the big arm of government come down and say you must do this. You must eat better, so forth.
I don't think
tax
so.
The wrong kinds of foods and things. You're not going down that route.
I'm not. No.
Okay. Let's go over to the economy.
Good.
If you'd been in the Congress in the fall of 2008, going back not so far, fall of 2008, the president, then a Republican President Bush, his Treasury Secretary Terry Paulson, the House and Senate Democratic leaders, Reid and Pelosi, they all come to you and say, look, we got this $700 billion bailout. We'd like you to approve it. If you were representing the Congress, representing the 14th Congressional District at that time, how would you vote? Yes or no?
Well, again, with the stipulation that I wasn't there, and you know, I know there was a lot of information.
We're going to rename this program. You are there, Senator.
That's good.
Randy Hultgren. Okay.
Put me there. I'll take the promotion right now. But if I was there, I would have voted against it. I think it was too much of a burden that we're passing on to future generations. I think we have a history in America of leaving our country in better shape for the generations that follow us.
You would have voted no on the bailout.
I would have.
And that was said by Secretary Paulson, necessary to keep credit from freezing up, to keep the economy from going into a major downturn, maybe even, he might say, into a depression. You'd stand up to Paulson, you'd stand up to Fed Chief Bernanke, to your president, to the congressional leaders and say, no, I disagree.
Yeah, I think it would have. And plenty did. Plenty said, you know, this is the wrong way to go.
Mostly Republicans who did, but
and they did. And
were some Democrats.
Right. And so I think that shows the courage of saying, you know what, is this really the reaction?
But you know, a lot of Republicans did, excuse me, but a lot of Republican Senate and House representatives did buy into that, right? And certainly it was a Republican president who led it with Treasury Paulson.
Right, and I've said, and I've been very open of saying, you know, I have not been very pleased with the Republican Party in the last administration, in the leadership in Congress when Republicans had control of Congress. I think we overspent. I think our first reaction is to throw more money at something, you know, that for us to address this, we need to
switch over to the political side. You kind of imply that one of your opponents is Ethan Hastert, son of Speaker Hastert, former Speaker Hastert. Is this Republican primary, in a sense, going to become, in part, a referendum on Speaker Hastert and his performance, at least during the last few years?
I hope not. What I really do hope...
Are you alluding to? Because you said something about you haven't been happy with
what I think it does,
what the Republicans are doing in Congress, right?
No, that's good. What I do allude to is I think we need to be talking about issues right now and where we go in the future, recognizing that both parties have made mistakes in the past, but who is in the best position, and I think this is my argument as I talk to people out in the 14th Congressional District of why I think I'm the best candidate to win against Bill Bill Foster next November and serve that district, is that I can talk about issues, mistakes that are being made right now, and how we move forward, not being pulled back in. And my fear is that other candidates maybe wouldn't be able to do that as well as I would. And
any
backing
name in particular?
No, backing even
are you
backing that up.
Ethan Hastert?
Well,
are you
what I
referring
would
to Mark
confer with
Vargas?
him,
I mean, who are you
both of
to?
those guys don't have I like them. I've enjoyed working with them out on the campaign trail, talking with them. What separates me is the service I've already provided on the county board and as a state representative and as a state senator for that district. And I represent, a fair amount of that Kane County and DuPage County area of the 14th congressional district. And they've seen that I'm there representing them. And I think that's the biggest problem right now in the 14th congressional district, is that there's a feeling by all of us, I'm a constituent there, and I just feel like my congressman isn't responding to me.
Your congressman is
Bill Foster.
He's a Democrat.
He is a Democrat. I want to present...
What is he doing? What is
positive,
very briefly, two things. What does that 14th congressional district look like? Give us a 30-second thumb.
Well, I'm biased, but it's the best district in the state. So it's a great district, it really is. It's the western part of DuPage County. So where I live in Winfield, West Chicago, Warrenville, and Wayne is in DuPage County, and then it goes west and takes in all of Kane and Kendall and most of DeKalb and Ogle and Henry and Lee and Whiteside. So actually Henry is on the far side of it.
What are the towns or cities?
Yeah,
big Aurora's in it.
Aurora, Elgin,
Aurora's
the Tri-Cities, so St. Charles, Geneva, Batavia, and then go out Yorkville, Plainfield, Oswego, and then out to DeKalb. NIU is in the district, and then Dixon, Reagan's boyhood home, is there, and then Tampico, Reagan's birthplace, and out to Geneseo, and Cambridge, which is out in Henry County. So literally it goes 4 miles from the Mississippi River.
And in the Republican primary, we anticipate that Ethan Hastert will file. We anticipate that Senator Randy Hultgren will file.
Yes, we will.
Which will be late October.
Yes.
Mark Vargas and perhaps others. We've talked to Ethan Hastert. He said he's trying to schedule a time to be out here, so we're certainly inviting him. We don't endorse candidates. We do endorse the notion that every candidate everywhere should come on shows like Public Affairs and discuss the issues. And so far, we expect Ethan Hastert to do that.
I do want to say I was the last one to announce, but the first one to show up on your show. So
you know that, and you do get credit for. We got to say we had a few people scheduled for this show. We had Cheryl Robinson Jackson running for the U.S. Senate. We had Patty. She's on the Democratic side. We had Pat Hughes on the Republican side. Both of those apparently found other commitments, so they had to break these commitments.
So I was way down on the list,
but they said they will be back here, so we encourage them.
Good.
We hope they will be, and we're not going to disparage them. But we will point out that at the last minute we needed somebody for this show because we need people to talk to you folks. It's not for me. It's for you folks who are in Aurora and Rockford and Chicago and the 34 Chicago metro suburbs and around the state of Illinois, often on the Illinois Channel. Randy Hultgren stepped in on the last minute. He didn't say, well, what are you going to ask me? What are you going to do? He didn't do any of that. And we appreciate that. Again, we don't endorse. We're not endorsing Randy Hultgren, nor Ethan Hastert, nor Mark Vargas. But we do endorse the notion that people should be willing to do what he's done. Come here, doesn't know what he's going to get asked, and deal with these questions and issues. So thank you so much for coming.
I appreciate the opportunity. I really do. And it's this is what I love to do, get out and talk to people, talk about what we're working on.
So real quick, going back to some of those economic issues, the economic stimulus, $800 billion, you would have voted against that?
I think I probably would have.
Okay. Would you suggest something? So you would have been against the bailouts, you would have been against the stimulus. Is there a proposal coming from you and other Republicans that you would have done in place, or would you just said, just let the natural forces work their way out and things will get better?
Well, there is, I think that's a big part of it, is having natural forces work. That, the free market is what has set us apart as a nation for so long. And sometimes things need to fail. I mean, that hurts. I don't like that. It's not a pleasant process to go through. But sometimes, when we have government motors.
You would have let AIG fail, that $85 billion bailout?
I don't know.
I don't
know. I might have. I would have looked at it.
Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac? Quasi-government private entities, you would have let them fail?
There again, if there's been commitments that we've made as a government to people that we're going to follow through, we have to follow through on those commitments.
Did we have to bail them out?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
You're waffling a bit on that.
No, I'm not waffling. I just told you before, I didn't sit there and I don't know everything, the commitments that were made with Freddie and Fannie.
Would you have encouraged Bank of America, and I use that word, sort of moral suasion, encouraged with like, we're going to break your arm, that's the government? Didn't they kind of encourage Bank of America to buy Merrill Lynch? And then when things, and they almost encourage them not to disclose. And now Bank of America is probably going to get sued for not disclosing.
Right.
Isn't that sort of odd, where the government encourages you almost to misrepresent, and then it allows lawsuits to go forward?
But there's a theme here, you know, with what
did that happen? Am I being too harsh on the government?
Again, I think it did happen. It sure appears like it.
You would have done
as
a
we're
little
going
less
through
of that.
Yeah, I think so. Right. I think that's got to be. And there's a place for regulation. Absolutely, there's a place for regulation. That's what we need to learn out of this: is what is the government's role. But the problem is we can't keep everything going the way it has. There's been examples of companies that haven't made it through.
We only got about 5 minutes left, so we're going to go to the lightning round real quick.
Okay.
In and out. School vouchers, yes or no? You favor those?
I do support more school choice. The voucher program, what I do support and have supported is charter schools. I think they've been very effective. I think we need more of those.
Hesitant on school vouchers?
I would like parental choice. I'd like parental options within districts.
School vouchers a parental choice?
No, everybody has a different idea what a voucher is. I would like to have...
A voucher is simply this: take the money that we're giving people now in the form of a free, so-called free public education. Here's the money. If you want to go to the public school, just give it right back. If you don't, go to the private school of your choice. Yeah. Isn't that choice? Can't you sign on to that?
I do support parental ability to determine where's the best place for my kid to get an education.
Do you support what I just described? As a voucher program, I described it, yes or no?
I think our ultimate responsibility, I'm not trying to waffle, but I just need to get an answer in, is that I do support our public education. I need to make sure that we do have funding for public education. So if we can put that together in a way where we give parents and teachers more ability to be able to specialize and to provide excellent education for our students, that's what I want to do. So however we phrase that, I think vouchers is a term that is so loaded, but again, if we can get parental choice, I think that's better.
Same thing. If I call it scholarships, then you're okay?
Well, again, I want to see how it looks, but the idea of giving parents the ability to teach their kids, that's what I want to support.
Free trade, NAFTA, CAFTA, yes or no?
Yeah.
Would you have supported NAFTA and CAFTA?
I think so, yes.
Okay. The so-called Employee Free Choice Act, some people call it card check. You know, the union guy stands outside the hall and says, please sign this card. Maybe he doesn't say please. And if you sign it and he gets in a certain number of authorizations, then that proposed union gets certified. Yeah. So people would say you're giving up, the employees are giving up the secret ballot. Should you favor that or not?
I'm opposed to that.
You're opposed to that?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
do you know how Bill
unions
Foster,
play a role.
You know what Bill Foster thinks about that?
Well, I've heard stories, but I don't know for sure. But he is. I know he's very tied in with unions, and you know what? Unions play a great role. But when they become coercive, which they do, I promise you they do. You know that. I think that's where it goes overboard. They've played a role in times where the balance of power is not there, and workers aren't cared for. But right now, in this type of thing, it goes too far, and there is. It's more than persuasion. It's overstepping.
Personal disclosure, transparency. Would you release your tax returns?
I would.
Okay.
You're kind of boring. I haven't yet.
All right.
So,
but if I call up next week, you do release it to me and any other members of the media?
Yeah, I would like to see. I've talked with some other governor candidates who have done that. I've got
so
nothing to hide. I definitely showed my economic statements. Sure.
Your net worth, what was it? What is it approximately?
I'm not worth very much. I've been a public servant.
Ballpark.
You know, I think probably $300,000-$400,000, depending on how our house is our main asset, as most people is. And I've been pleased to work with some great companies that have taken care of us, but our number one priority is taking care of our kids and saving some for their college education, and then also our home, which has been hit there. So
you're doing a great job. We're going to continue, and I don't mean I agree or disagree with the issues. He's been going with me and giving short answers to a lot of questions, and we appreciate that. In that sense, you're doing a great job.
Thanks.
We'll let the viewers decide whether they agree or disagree with you. But we're going to continue to speak as the credits roll. But I do very much want to thank our guest, State Senator Randy Hultgren, who's been there been in the State House for 8 years, DuPage County board member for 4 years before. He's now been a senator, state senator for 3 years. He wants to be the 14th Congressional District representative. He wants to represent the Republican Party in that February 2nd primary. And then if he faces Bill Foster, the incumbent, he would like to beat him, putting it bluntly.
Yes, I would.
Okay. Very quickly, illegal immigration. What's the solution there? Is it more border control?
I think it's border control. I think it's following through on border control. I also think it's changing the current process of being the legal process of going through immigration. It's just, it doesn't make sense.
What do you do with the 13 million so-called illegal immigrants who are here in the United States? Send them back or have a path to becoming legal?
I think, I don't know. You know, I think we need to go through that, and that's a big decision. Right now, the first thing we've got to do is secure our borders. We're having people, it's a porous border that we've got where drug lords and gangs are coming through.
Lightning round still going.
Sorry.
Cap and trade, yes or no?
No.
Okay. Why?
because it doesn't accomplish what the goal was. It's going to be huge tax expense on the people who can afford it the least. If you really want to have some of these controls, for us to be the only...
Got to go right now.
Sorry.
We got to go right now to abortion.